Let's talk about that feeling. You know the one? That deep, kind of squirmy discomfort you get when your actions just don't line up with what you believe. It's like this internal tug-of-war between who you really are and who a group wants you to be. Today, we're going to figure out exactly why that happens.
And this feeling? It was captured perfectly by Maureen Autumn DeFreitas in Trad magazine with this quote. Her story, wow, it just gets right to the very heart of this whole internal battle.
I mean, really, have you? You're at the dinner table or out with friends, and you just bite your tongue, even though every single part of you is screaming to speak up. If you've been there, trust me, you are not alone.
And that is exactly what we are going to do right now. We're going to break down the science behind that feeling because once you can actually put a name to it, well, that's when you can start to get a handle on it. Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to start with the story that really sparked this whole conversation.
So here's the scene. Maureen, the author, is in her friend group at university. She starts pointing out racist jokes and microaggressions when she hears them, but instead of getting support, she gets a label. Suddenly, she's the problem. She's the angry social justice warrior who can't take a joke. And what's really fascinating and heartbreaking is that her other friends of color would tell her in private, yeah, you're right. But in the group, total silence. Why? It all came down to this incredibly powerful fear of being pushed out, of being ostracized. So she was left with this awful choice. Either stay and pretend this is okay, or leave and be true to herself.
You see, this is way more than just an awkward social moment. There's a real fundamental psychological thing going on here. It's like a mental static that our brain is just desperate to turn off. So, let's give it a name.
And that name is cognitive dissonance. Seriously, this is one of the most important, most influential ideas in all of modern social psychology, and it explains so much about why we do the things we do.
So at its core, cognitive dissonance is just mental stress. It's that awful feeling when one part of your brain says, I believe racism is wrong, but another part of your brain is directing your action, which is, I'm staying silent while my friends tell racist jokes. That contradiction creates this intense pressure to change something, anything, to make that discomfort go away.
This whole idea comes from an American social psychologist named Leon Festinger. Way back in 1957, he came up with this pretty revolutionary theory. He said that we humans have this deep, fundamental need for our inner world, our beliefs, our values, our ideas, to be consistent. And when they're not, we feel this dissonance, and we get super motivated to fix it.
So how do we fix it? How do we resolve this conflict? Well, it turns out our brains are incredibly creative when it comes to finding an escape hatch from this mental pain. Festinger basically mapped out a few of the main strategies.
Let's make it super simple. Imagine you're on a diet, but you're eating a donut. Boom. Dissonance. Here are your brain's 4 main escape routes. Number 1, change your behavior. You just stop eating the donut. Easy. 2, you justify it by changing a belief. You think, you know what, cheating on my diet is okay sometimes. 3, you justify it by adding a new belief like, it's fine, I'll just go to the gym for an extra 30 minutes to burn this off. Or, number 4, you just ignore or deny the conflict altogether. You tell yourself, this donut isn't that bad for me.
Okay, but this is where it gets really, really wild. What happens when those justifications are pretty weak? That's when we don't just make excuses for what we did. We actually change how we feel about it in the first place.
So Festinger designed this absolutely brilliant experiment to test this out. He had students do a mind-numbingly boring task for a whole hour, literally just turning pegs on a board. Then he offered to pay them to lie to the next person in line, to tell them that the task was actually super fun and exciting. But here's the twist. Some students were offered $20 for the lie, which was a lot of money back then, while the others were offered just a single dollar. And the result is the whole point. The students who got paid $20, they had no problem. They lied, they took the money, and they still told the researchers the task was incredibly boring. Their justification was easy. Of course I lied. You paid me $20. But the $1 group? Oh, they had a problem. Lying for just $1? It feels cheap. It creates dissonance. I'm a good, honest person, but I just lied for basically nothing. So to get rid of that awful feeling, their brains did this incredible mental gymnastics trick. They changed their own memory. They actually convinced themselves that, you know what, the task wasn't that bad. In fact, it was kind of interesting. They changed their belief to match their action.
So that's the battle going on inside our own heads. But this whole process gets cranked up to 11 when we add other people into the equation. This is where cognitive dissonance crashes right into our powerful, ancient human instinct to conform.
Conformity is just what it sounds like. It's changing how you act or what you believe because of group pressure. whether that pressure is real or just in your head. This is the force that kept the friends in our opening story completely silent. They felt that pressure to just go along with the group, even if it meant swallowing their own values.
And it turns out there are two main reasons we conform. The first is what's called informational influence. That's when we conform because we just want to be right, and we figure, hey, the group probably knows better than I do. But the second one, normative social influence, that's about wanting to be liked. It's about fitting in, getting that approval, even if, deep down, we totally disagree. And that is exactly what was happening in Maureen's friend group. They were complying on the outside, but disagreeing on the inside.
And get this isn't just some vague, fuzzy feeling. It's actually hardwired into our biology. Brain scans show that when you disagree with a group you belong to, it can trigger the same parts of your brain that fire up when you make a factual error. Standing out literally feels like a mistake to your brain, setting off these little alarm bells that say, warning, get back in line with the others to be safe.
So we've got the internal pressure of dissonance clashing with the external pressure of conformity. And all of that brings us right back to that painful choice that, let's be honest, all of us have to make at some point.
Remember those 4 ways to get rid of dissonance? Well, the author of our story chose the first and, honestly, the hardest one. She changed her behavior. Instead of trying to justify the group's actions or changing her own beliefs about right and wrong, she removed herself from the whole situation. She chose to make her actions, who she hung out with, match her core values, even though it was really, really hard. And that is a powerful way to resolve dissonance. And her final takeaway here is just so important. She realized that trying to force yourself to belong by chipping away pieces of who you are is just a losing game. Real belonging, true belonging, isn't about conforming to what a group wants. It's about being secure enough in yourself that you find the people who accept you for exactly who you are.
And that really leaves all of us with the big question. We all face these moments, and knowing about cognitive dissonance and the pressure to conform, it doesn't necessarily make the choice easy, but it does make it clearer. It gives you that superpower we talked about, the ability to see the invisible forces pulling on you. So when you feel that uncomfortable tug, you can stop and ask yourself, am I changing to be right? Am I changing to be liked? Or am I choosing to be true to myself? The choice in the end is always yours.